So if you grew up in Hawaii, get ready to take a trip back to small kid times because I want to talk about card games we used to play in Hawaii. So before smartphones, if you had to kill some time, either before school, during class, after school, recess time, lunchtime, anytime, someone bust out the pack of cards and you started playing. So I want to share the 5 card games that I remember playing back in elementary school, middle school, and high school. Haven't heard that sound in a long time. It's been a while since I played these games, so I may not have the rules 100% correct, and so please correct me if you know the rules in the comments below. Trumps. Now, this is my all-time favorite local card game. Whether you're playing regular trumps or high-low, this was the card game that me and my friends would play the most. And at school, when you see a card game with 4 people, you pretty much already knew they're playing trumps. And if you're not familiar with trumps, it's basically a 2 versus 2 card game where the goal of the game is to win so many packs. And after bidding for the kitty in the middle, one person declares one of the suits as the trump for that particular game. And then you start throwing cards down in the middle based on what the first person throws down. And if you don't have that particular suit, you could either throw the trump to try to win the pack, or you could throw rubbish and just let it go. And I think what made trumps so fun was you were working with a partner, right? You and your partner had to work together and you had to kind of figure out who had what. So it was really good strategy, it was really good card counting, and I remember several games that went down to the last pack. And of course, if you went public school, you kind of forget bolo or side bolo, where you pretty much completely wiped out the opposing team. Another of my favorite card games was Rich Man, Poor Man. This was especially popular with me and my cousins. If you only had 3 people, this was pretty much a card game that you were gonna play in Hawaii. For Rich Man, Poor Man, you're throwing cards now in certain sets of multiples. So you could throw like a single 4, or you could throw a pair of 4s, or 3 4s, or 4 4s, or if you had wilds, you can throw multiple above that. And the goal of the game was to try to get rid of all your cards. And what made this game particularly interesting was the winner of the previous round would get to discard 2 of their worst cards, and the loser, or whoever finished 3rd in the previous round, would have to give the winner of the previous round their 2 best cards, usually wilds or something really high. And that made it particularly difficult for that last place person because now they're basically giving up 2 of their best cards. However, if you were able to somehow climb your way back and you become the rich man after being stuck as the poor man, that was quite the feat, and it felt so good. All right, now let's talk about Speed. Now, Speed was a 2-person card game. So if you didn't have enough people to play trumps or enough to play Rich Man, Poor Man, it's just you and somebody else, you're pretty much playing Speed. Now, Speed's a pretty simple game. The goal is to get rid of all your cards, and you can only have 5 cards in your hand at a time. And you're putting down the cards one at a time, or like how we used to play with doubles or straights, you could just drop everything one time. But I know it's controversial. People have told me that no, you can't do doubles, and you cannot lay down like 3 cards at one time. You gotta put 1 at a time. I don't know, we used to play whatever, so just saying that's how we used to play. And the goal of the game was to get rid of all your cards. And of course, if you and your opponent are stuck, you gotta grab the card from the side and you throw down. And especially if you're impatient like I was, you would just say, you ready? You ready for flip? You ready for flip? And then eventually they would be like, yeah, I'm ready, okay. And then they would slowly turn the card over, and then you could continue the game. But you know, the best was when your opponent had 1 card left and you got like plenty cards left, right? And they're stuck on the 1 card and you're just going at it. You're just laying down cards. You're just throwing down so many cards, and they're just like paralyzed, right? Waiting for the 1 card to hopefully save them. And of course, you just beat them in the end. Another one of our favorite card games was Kemps. And if you were tired of playing trumps, you would play Kemps. Now, maybe it's not as popular as the other games, but we loved playing Kemps because with Kemps, it was a 2 versus 2. Now, the goal of Kemps was to get 4 of a kind. And the fun part about this was you and your partner would have a secret signal And so as you're trying to pull cards and trying to get your own four of a kind, you have to also pay attention to your partner as well as the opposing team. Because if your partner gave you the signal and you have the four of a kind, then you're supposed to yell out Kemps. But if you kind of sniff out their signal and you kind of guess, you could say stop Kemps. And with that, you would win the round because you basically would stop them from saying Kemps and winning that round. Now, I don't know what kind of signals people used to use. They used to do scratch the face, the ear, the eye. Sometimes we would go like this. But for me and one particular friend, we didn't mess around. As soon as we had the four of a kind, our signal was boom. And then the person would just have to be like Kemps, and the other two would have to hopefully not say stop Kemps. That was our signal. I know it wasn't very sneaky, but it worked every single time. Either we're gonna win or we're gonna lose right there. But that's how we used to play. And last but not least, the only card game that I could not play in private school, but it was all over the place in public school, BS. Now when it comes to BS, that is a game of lying. I'm pretty sure you could have as many as, I don't know, 5, 6 players. You deal out all the cards, but primarily, I guess it's more fun with 4. The goal of the game is to get rid of all your cards. And you could put down cards in multiple sets. So either singles or doubles or triples, or if you play with wilds, you could do even more. But the game was about calling out whether or not you believed somebody put down what they actually put down. So for example, I remember I got my hand over here and I'm like, okay, we're gonna start. Okay, I'm gonna put 2 2s. And then for that round, you could only throw 2s. If you didn't have a 2, you could either pass or you could put down another card that wasn't a 2 and just say, oh, 1 2, and see if anybody would call your bluff or would they add on to the pile. Because if they added on to the pile, that means you're safe. But the fun part of the game was calling somebody out. If you didn't believe that they threw down what they threw down, you could call BS. If it was correct and you called the bluff, then they actually had to take the whole pack. But if they actually were honest and threw down what they said they threw down, well, now you gotta take the big pack of cards. And I remember the strategy with BS is kind of a mix, because it's like, in a lot of ways, you don't want a lot of cards. But at the same time, the more cards you have, the crazier it gets, because the other person doesn't know what you have because you got so many cards. And when you throw wilds in there, like either 2s or jacks or jokers, someone could throw down 6 7s and you're like, well, I don't have any 7s, so maybe. And then they go 3 more and 1 more and 4 more, and it starts to become like how many 7s you get. And then you're kind of stuck because now you don't know what is in play, and then they'll change it to another number, and that was the fun of it. But again, growing up, we couldn't play that in private school, but public school, all over the place. So when I think about cards in Hawaii and growing up in Hawaii, I don't know, do kids play cards these days? I don't know, but man, I had a lot of good times playing cards with my friends. And maybe now with smartphones, kids aren't playing cards as much because they're just on their phones, they're just, swiping and looking down. But back when growing up, that's what you did. You had fun, you joked around, and yeah, cards were just part of growing up. And I'm very curious about what card games local kids play these days. And also from school to school, what the different card games are, what's like the popular games, and also what are the different rule variations. It's one of the things that I wish that looking back, now that we have all these sports and we're moving into esports, I wish that they would have had card tournaments where, can you imagine, you get kids from schools like McKinley and Kaiser going up against kids from Mililani or Waianae, and we're playing not football or basketball, no, we're playing trumps, or we're playing Rich Man Poor Man or Kemps or BS or any of these fun, or Speed, or any of these fun card games, Concentration, all these fun card games, just for bragging rights. So I'd love to know what your favorite card games were growing up in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and aloha.